First of all, when you're putting information in your description, so two things to do. Think about your description, the words that you're using to describe your property, and the photographs. So we'll start with those two. Identify all those things that you have because they could be an element that equals access. Like I said, a concrete driveway, a paved driveway. That's important for me. Hey, my wheelchair loves grass and it will just speed those wheels and I can dig a great hole in grass. And so I know I can't use grass, but I can easily access cobblestone, I mean, a hard surface driveway. So in your description, identify those things. Come visit our website at becomingrentable.com and look through our filters and say, oh, I need to list my door width. I need to list the driveway, an elevator, 3 steps, because, or you have a portable ramp. So the first thing is to look at description, photographs. Time and time again, we see the beautiful birds, the dishes. People love to show their dishes, the
Yeah.
ocean. What I want to see is floor to ceiling. I want to see what's on the floor. So when you're taking a picture in the bathroom, uh, open up that shower curtain. It may be a beautiful shower curtain. And if you want to show it off, show it off. But then the next picture, open it up. Is it a shower? Is it a tub? Is it a step-in shower, a roll-in shower? What exactly is behind curtain number 3? We want to see that. And so think about in your bedroom, what's the space between the bed? So many times we hear we need 5-foot radius. Sure, that would be lovely, but not all of our properties are big enough for a 5-foot radius. My rental properties don't have that in the bedroom, but what we do have is 48 inches from the wall to the bed. That allows my wide wheelchair to move forward, my husband to hoist me up, toss me on the bed, and wheel the wheelchair back, and we're all good. So again, we want to see, do you have a platform bed? We want to see, do you have any inches underneath your bed that my Hoyer lift can go to? So the key is information. That's what we want to know is all the information, all the things. For example, I don't know if you have a short-term rental. Do you have a dimmer switch? It's like, well, yeah, I have a dimmer switch. Well, dimmer switches are really important for people with cognitive disabilities and the sensory of light. So that is
Mm,
an accessible feature. And so we want to know, do you have fans in a bedroom or in the living room? Again, those are helpful for people with dementia, for aging, as well as cognitive disabilities. And so you may not know or think about what these things equal as far as accessibility. And we worry about that word. It's like, okay, we just want to know what you have. We can then
yeah.
determine that yes, it's accessible. Now, how we came into business was actually through these large booking platforms saying we are accessible. So we go, okay, you have this, you have that. We're not seeing, you know, an element, but they say they have it, so they have it. And you go, and dadgummit, there are 5 steps to the front door, and there's no other accessible entrance, or there's a 1 step to get into the bathroom, or the bathroom door is narrow. But if we knew that up front, then it wouldn't be a challenge or a problem. And so that's number one, what we encourage people to do.
Got
Share
it.
that information.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I think from a Airbnb standpoint, you actually are doing your listing a service too, in terms of being bumped in search because one of the biggest things you can do to improve your listing is just be fill out everything. Be as descriptive as possible. That's the Airbnb bots that analyze all the listings and decide what order they're going to show them to guests in are looking at that, and the ones that are half filled out or not super descriptive or only have a few pictures, they're getting bumped to the bottom. So it makes sense from a business standpoint as well. So I think that's excellent advice. So going back to maybe lowest hanging fruit, if somebody's going to buy a property and maybe they're doing some work on it, what are the things to focus? I know you mentioned some of them there, but where would you say the best place to focus on first if they want to make it as accessible as possible?
So if there are modifications that you're going to make, um, door widths are key, because again, when you have 36-inch doors, 32 is the common average door. But do you know at Lowe's you can get a 32-inch door, let's say for 108, but a 36-inch door is only $2 more, but yet
Hmm.
more people can go through that door. So
Yeah.
again, if you have that opportunity, go with the wider door. Look at where can you create what we call a zero threshold entry, which means there's no bump titty bump or a step to get in. Sometimes those bump titty bumps are really hard because I don't have a lot of room to get ready and gun my chair to get over those bumps. And
Yeah.
so if you can do zero threshold is best that you can, that is another area. Think about having one entrance that is accessible without a ramp, without a device, a lift to get in. Again, this is in that beginning stages, because once you hit some of these hurdles, the rest is smooth sailing. The bathroom is always, you can buy a 17-inch or a 19-inch commode. Go ahead. The cost is minimal, if any difference, in a 19-inch commode. Go ahead and put wall board backing up for grab bars in the toilet, in the shower. Now, again, we don't know what we don't know. And so that's part of the challenge and what equals access. So when I started becoming rentable, because I could not take a bath, I said a bathtub is not accessible. Well, guess what? We had a friend of, well, actually, one of our ambassadors from Africa came over, spent 2 weeks at our rental, and I said, Alan, we have a room, a bathtub, and a roll-in shower, your choice. He's like, I'll take the tub. I'm like, dude, you're paralyzed. What do you mean you're going to take a bath? And he goes, Lorraine, they call it a bum. He's like, I prefer a bath. I use my transfer board. I get in the bath and I feel like my bum is clean. But if I go into a roll-in shower, I'm sitting on a bench and I don't ever
Hmm.
feel like my bum is clean. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, a bathtub is accessible. Who would have known? And that's the beauty of like education and awareness. So you have a bathtub, that's a good thing for a
So
lot of
he would bring
people.
a lift with him then to
He
be able
did.
to get
It's
in the.
called a transfer board. It's about a
Okay.
$35 board, and it
Wow.
has it's thin, and then it kind of goes thicker, and then it goes thin. So it's easy to slide up onto it. You put it on between your wheelchair and then the lip of the tub. And again, a lot of people who are paraplegic have strong upper body strength, and he did. And so he then would then lower himself in the tub, do the tub, everything's clean, get up, dry off, get in his wheelchair, and maybe
Wow.
off to
That's
brush his
great.
teeth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and so that was really interesting. So again, put that tub in there. Moms with small children love it. My favorite advice on what to do, and this is one that costs minimal and there's not any renovation, and that is having a secondary lock on your exterior doors. And that's for the wanderers. Lorraine, you can't go see the bunny right now. And so, because some people with autism are wanderers, people with dementia are wanderers. So, what's the safest thing you can do? Go about 5 feet up and put a secondary lock. Costs no more than $10 a lock. And then you've opened up your renters to millions of people who are not addressing that one safety component for people who are wanderers. And if you have small children, it's also pretty nice to have that safety net there. So
Yeah.
there are, for the construction piece, again, the bathroom, the doors, the exterior path from the parking to your accessible door. And a front door isn't always, it's like, oh, I love those large steps. We have a place in South Carolina and I want that look. Fine. Make your accessible entrance in the garage on the side
Hmm.
of the property. It doesn't have to be in the front. Secondly, I would say to investors, your property doesn't have to meet all 63 filters. Identify those that work for you. In my properties, it took me 4 years to get lift chairs. we have a lot of guests with ALS, and it's very exhausting for the individual with ALS and for the caregivers to transfer from the wheelchair to a bed, from the bed to the wheelchair to another chair. So a lift chair provides the comfort that they would like to go to sleep at night or take a nap, and breathing, elevating their head and their chest just a little bit for them. But it took me a while financially to make that addition to our property. So, going in, identify what you can. And for return on investment, it is a hospital bed, it is a lift chair, it is the doors, and the entrances.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. That's super, super helpful information. Um, so for your platform then, RentABLE, so
Mhm.
rentable.com, I believe there's around 1,300 properties listed there.
We're about 1,200 now.
1,200.
Here,
Okay.
sad but true, and at the same time we're happy. So we're actually becoming rentable is the
Oh, I'm
official
sorry.
name. Oh, that's okay. We're all about the able part because that's what how we identified our name.
Yeah.
And so goodness gracious, you did it again. My brain's like
The number,
going this
yeah.
way, and I
Yeah, I was asking the
totally.
number. Yeah, the number
Oh,
of
yeah, 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 yeah.
properties. Yeah.
So it's my age too. I'm now 64. And so,
Oh, I do the same thing at 44, so don't worry
yeah.
about it.
But in the United States this year, right now, between the booking platforms that we know and the numbers released, there's 1.5 million short-term rental properties.
Mm,
But in our research and what we found, there are less than 1% that are accessible. That's 1,500. I mean, I hate to say it's pitiful, but it's pitiful.
yeah.
We had the privilege and have the privilege to be working on a campaign called Smashing My Limits. It is a campaign designed to create more accessible short term rentals so that people with SMA, muscular dystrophy, can find a rental and experience new things. And we're working with Novartis on this project. And what we found out is there are tree houses. There's a tree house that is accessible. There's cabins and yurts.
Wow.
There's an African tent, see, safari African tent. Anyway, there's really cool places, and
Yeah.
and and that's what we're looking at. Okay, we want more accessible short-term rentals. So not only do we have a place to stay, but we have a place to create new experiences. And in fact, um, by working on this project, my husband and I were at the beach. I said, Robert, I said, what do you think about going on a family vacation this year? He's like, what? I said, a family vacation. A lot of people do it. We haven't had one since the boys were in middle school. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, I said, this project's really making me think about when you have a place to stay, what can you do? Like at Carolina Beach, we have Ocean Cure, and it's a group of volunteers that take people with disabilities out and go surfing. I mean, how
Mm,
cool is that?
yeah.
And so, anyway, I came up with what I thought was a great idea. I came home and I told my family, excuse me for those listeners, but I said, okay, I found a place I want us to take a family vacation. And they were like, all right, Mom, where? And I said, Kentucky. Yeah, that if you could see Kirby's face right now, his face just went from smiles to Kentucky. And the boys did the same thing. He goes,
Well, I'm from
why?
Indiana, so we're not too far
I'm
away.
okay. Well, I'm an honorary Kentucky colonel, so I don't know if that helps. But I did say Kentucky, and they were like, "Mom, why Kentucky?" I said, "Because you all like whiskey, and wouldn't it be fun to go to a distillery? I
Yeah.
don't drink it, but I would have fun." Looking at them making it in the bottles and just the giggles and grins I would have. And they're like, no, Mom, we're not going to Kentucky. But I thought it was a great idea because it was all about the experience and making them happy. They said they would rather go to our beach house, and I'm like, okay, because it's safe. And and
Yeah.
and that's another point from an investment standpoint is when you find a place that works for you and your family, you go back to that place
Mm,
because it meets your needs. And so, in targeting and looking at places for people with disabilities, we know we usually travel at least with one other person, if not two. So, we have more people. We tend to stay one more day than the average without a
Mm,
disability because we don't go on as many vacations. When we do go, we tend to stay longer. We tend to spend more money, not just because I'm a woman and I love to shop, but because we're not out doing it. So the economic return for a community commonly is much greater with guests who have disabilities. And, that another hurdle that investors sometimes have about an accessible short term rental is the fear of the ADA. And I will
mhm.
say, I just did a webinar with the Eastern ADA Center on the STRs and ADA folks. And there are minimal requirements that the law says that you have. And there's never been a legal case for somebody that was sued in regard to an accessible short term rental. And so, but there's
Interesting.
this fear, there's
Yeah.
this great fear that they will get sued. We see more lawsuits with people who are drinking and falling down steps because they had too much alcohol. But yet we are not afraid of that. But I will tell you, I have the world's greatest renters. Hands down, I get gifts, I get notes, I get thank yous. There's so much appreciation in the way they leave our rentals. It's like I don't even need cleaners. I mean,
That's
they are
amazing.
just so responsible. And there's a lot of benefits, and then how it's changed their lives. It's like
Yeah.
I never thought this could be us, and it is. So it's quite
Yeah.
rewarding, and it's good business.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're doing good and doing well, as they say, right? So,
Mhm.
um, I love that. And you're giving me so many ideas. My wheels are turning as you're talking through this about our properties. But you brought up, that there's 1% of all short-term rentals that are accessible. 1,500 properties. What is the need? I mean, of your 500 stays at your North Carolina property, how many of those were people in need of accessible house, or was it just, a typical
I would
traveler?
say, yeah, I would say in the beginning it was 70-30.
Wow,
70% needed it. We're at 100% now. We already have
really?
next summer booked. Um,
Holy cow!
yeah, it really is amazing. We just finished up, and this was really an interesting project. Rockaway Beach, Oregon, their community, their mayor, their city council hired Becoming Rentable to come in, and we evaluated their 430 rentals because they're a tourism community. They felt, and Oregon is an incredibly progressive state in bringing about accessible travel, doing remarkable work. But this particular county felt like they were not reaching potential guests. And so they only had one accessible short term rental. And they said, all right, Lorraine, we need your crew to come in and let's look at our inventory. What does it look like? So we evaluated their 430. And I wanted to find out, kind of benchmarking, how many properties do you hope that you can find that meet our 8 minimal requirements? And they said, we would be really happy if we could double it. So if we found two, that would make us happy. So we did there, and the result of it was we found 20 that could be
Wow.
verified today. We found 37 that needed one more access point, like a ramp to the door that could be verified. And then we found 61 properties that just needed more information. We couldn't see a photo of the front door. We couldn't see the access to a bedroom or a bathroom. So over 100 properties that out of the 430 could be identified as accessible for them. We have the 20, and
Yeah.
they were blown away. So we'll be doing education for that community, and bringing about their tourism, recognizing that they want to be a part of this mix for their town.